How many of you guys messed with VirtualBox and that kind of stuff? I just kind of want to. There's two ways to kind of go about this. VirtualBox, no virtual machine.
Mess is the right word.
Messed with it? Yeah. Okay. So for the first part of it, I'm going to show you kind of how installation with Laravel without the VirtualBox. My machine, though, I don't have MySQL kind of installed, and I really don't want to install another instance of MySQL on there. I mean, I could. It's just to me, I'm like, oh, well, I'm just going to have this one. So then I'm going to kind of shift over to my VirtualBox for the rest of it. But you can install MySQL on your Mac. You can probably do it with Homebrew if y'all guys are familiar with Homebrew, and get that installed. I thought I was going to be able to kind of finish everything out, and I was hitting some SQL error, and it was because, oh, well, I don't have MySQL installed on my Mac. I have it on my VirtualBox. So VirtualBox, for those of y'all who don't know, is just a fake machine on your computer. There are some kind of pre-configs that you could do if you're putting this on a server, and I can kind of make this a little bit bigger for you guys. And it's here on the Laravel docs. Now, Laravel docs are pretty well, I think they're pretty well established. When I don't find my answers here, one of the other things that I'll tend to look at is their API. And their API is, let me see, I haven't gone to it in a while. It's actually not on here. Oh, there it is right there. Yeah, API documentation. And those are actually the class names and kind of where they're mapped to and all that stuff when you get down to that route. But almost always I find kind of what I need here and on a thing called Stack Overflow. I'm sure none of y'all have heard of that. So that's another area where I kind of find everything. I'll be going through my notes, kind of what I have here for y'all, and then I could send this out to you so you can send it out to the group if you want to. So to kind of get started, you need this thing called Composer. Who's heard of Composer? Okay, good. Who has not? Whatever. Same people raise your hands are the other ones too. So Composer is just a package manager, and all it does is manages packages for PHP. So to install it, it's a simple curl command to install it. So when you run this command, it'll actually install Composer. So that way you have Composer available on your system. Now to actually run that, you would have to run PHP, which runs that file through the PHP engine, and then the name of the file, which is composer.far. This is, let me see if I hit the wrong command here. I guess this is kind of small. This composer.far with PHP in front of it. Or you can move it to your system, to your local bin path. Change the name of it, so that way all you have to do is run the name Composer. So that way you went at the terminal, and let me change this here. Okay, there we go. So at the terminal you have the command Composer. So I just typed in Composer. I already had those things pre-installed, and it kind of gave me all of what I can do with Composer with those packages. Then with Composer, you can install the Laravel command, Composer global require, and then the Laravel installer. And this just kind of installs an actual Laravel command. There's several ways to actually install or kind of get a Laravel app up and running, but this just gives you kind of the you could type in Laravel new blog, and it'll actually create a new application under a folder called blog. One other keynote is that you have to make sure that Composer is in your vendor path, and this is done in your bash profile. Any of y'all mess with the bash profile? Okay, good. So you just got to make sure that the Composer is inside that inside your bash profile, so that we can run this command. So let's get started with our Laravel install here. I'm going to go to sites, and these are just folders that I have. There's my path, and then kind of the stuff in there. If you see bloggy, and then dash bloggy, it's not because I was testing this application several times. It is, so just kind of so you know. So here now, .dev has nothing to do with the actual creation of the folder. I can actually call it just bloggy, or I could call it blog if I wanted to, or whatever I wanted to call it. But I'm calling it bloggy.dev because later you'll find out that I actually have a host pointed to that directory file. And I use kind of .devs for all my local development. So that's why I'm naming that on purpose. And then we eat pizza and wait. Build something amazing. So cd into bloggy.dev. And I'm going to open this up in Sublime. Make sure that open the font. One of the first things I mess with whenever I'm messing with a new application is the environment file. So the environment file, for those of you who don't know, it's just kind of your local environment. If you're on a team where you're developing, they're going to have a different .env. If you mess with Git and you know stuff about Git ignore, the .env file is being ignored, so that way it doesn't get committed to a repo. That being said, so that way you don't actually commit username and password information to your database. I know it's local and it kind of really doesn't matter, but still, you know, if it's a password you use on everything, you don't want it up on GitHub, or you don't want your team to have it. So I already have a database installed. I use SQL Pro format for mine. Just going to kind of flush this. I'll redo that. I have one called meetup underscore DB. Underscore DB, and then I'm going to use the root user. I could go and create a new MySQL user, but then again, I think I'm funny about what I choose to be secure about. So the password is blank. So this kind of sets you up for your database environment. Once you have your MySQL database, create it, and that's all you really have to do is create it, and then you have your credentials right here. If you go over to config, database, see if y'all can see it right here. They use this env function, and the way this env function works is use what's in the environment. If not, make it localhost. So these are just defaults. Use the database name. If not, use Forge. Forge is one of their virtual box, I believe. I haven't used it yet or played with it that much, so I think it's theirs, and their default database is Forge, and username is Forge. Same thing here, username, if not, use Forge, password, if not, keep it blank. And notice that we have other drivers here. You know, you have SQLite, MySQL, Postgres, and SQL Server. I've only messed with Laravel with MySQL and Postgres, and those are, you know, it's pretty fun for doing it in both. And the way you pick which one you want is right here. You say, I wanted to connect to MySQL. If you want it Postgres, just do PQ SQL. Wait, did I do that wrong? I think I did that wrong. Yeah. PG SQL. There you go. And then that would change what database it actually connects to.
I'm sorry. So that's the only thing I need to change if I change databases? It's just that one?
Change database types, like what type of database?
Yeah, change database types.
Yes. Now, note that when that being said, instead of creating a database here, I'm going to have to go to Postgres and actually create a database.
Okay.
So the database has to be created, and there has to be a username and password associated with the database. As long as those key components are in place, pretty much everything that's in the environment file. As long as I have this set up right here, whether it's Postgres or MySQL, then that's the one spot I have to change it, and then I can use Postgres or MySQL.
Okay, awesome.
Is Laravel using PDO under the covers, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
For MySQL, yes.
PDO. Can you specify MySQLi?
I believe you can right here. No. I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
I just don't know where, because I've always used PDO with this.
Yeah. I mean, I was just curious if it was their own abstraction or. or PDO.
Yeah, do you know if you could or not?
I think you can, but I think it would break a bunch of features.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean PDO is the newest and probably more,
Right.
probably more secure than MySQLi. But I'm pretty sure you can, and if not, I'm pretty sure somebody made a package for it.
I mean, I'm just curious.
So let me see where we at here. So we got our database connected. Start Laravel, and let's kind of get started talking into route. Those are really the first kind of things that I set up is kind of the database, the env file, just to make sure everything's set up. And then when I go to Laravel, there's two ways. So if you're installing this locally, here, let me go personal. What was it? Bloggy.dev. You can do what's called PHP Artisan Serve. This will actually start like the Artisan server, so that way you can run a Laravel application. It's already in use. It's probably because I'm using it in another terminal here. Yeah. So I already have it on. Let me just close that, and then we'll start it up again. So that's one way to do it, and then you can see that it comes up with this kind of preset screen, Laravel 5, and that's kind of like the welcome screen. When you see that, everything's good. Everything's awesome. I've set it up through a virtual machine, and I'm probably going to kind of show it through there. If you guys are interested in it, I do have that on an open source. I do have that open source on Bitbucket. Oh, wait, no, I actually have that private on Bitbucket, but I could open source it because there's not any credentials in there. And then CodeUp has one that all the students are using that's also kind of open source. Yeah, or there's Homestead. And these are all just ways to kind of set up your own virtual box. So VirtualBox, again, just a machine that's on your computer. The cool thing about using Vagrant for that is you can control it all through the command line. So, Vagrant up, that turns on the machine. Vagrant down, that turns it down. Or Vagrant halt, you would think Vagrant down would, but Vagrant halt, that turns it off. So that's kind of how we manage, our local development environments. And then if something goes wrong, you could just reprovision it or trash it and rebuild it up, just as long as you have everything backed up. So I'm going to show everything through bloggy.dev. I'll probably switch back and forth so you can kind of see, but when we get to kind of the database portion of this, I'm going to stay on bloggy.dev. So one of the cool things about Laravel that I liked when I kind of started messing around with it, and I'll be jumping back and forth in the documentation because I kind of want to show you, documentation is always key to kind of keep open as you're going through this. Here in the installation, sorry. Basic configuration. If you have access to your server, whether it's Nginx or Apache, if it's Apache, you would need this in your htaccess file. And this is so that way you get pretty URLs, and the pretty URLs, blog.dev / about, or blog.dev / contact, instead of having PHP extensions. So this is the code that you would put in your htaccess file if you're in Apache. If you're in Nginx, it looks something similar to that. So now, because of that configuration, I can go in and actually mess with what's called routes. So just think of routes as what the name is itself. I hit a URL up in the browser, and it routes me to a certain functionality that I set. So I have this way to kind of control that flow. And when Laravel 5 came up, they changed the whole documentation. I'm going to ask my students to ignore that. But just keep note of it. So when Laravel 4 started and 3, and if y'all messed with it, you had your app directory. Inside your app directory, you had your controllers, your models, your views, and your controllers. Is anybody not familiar with the MVC framework and what that means? MVC? Troll. He knows what it means. Everybody's good with that? Okay. So MVC, Model View Controller, all the folders used to be in here, and you would just click on apps and you would see model and you would see views and you would see controllers. Kind of very, easy to understand. And for some reason they went a different route with this and kind of buried stuff inside of HTTP because they were trying to separate commands, command line stuff with actual HTTP requests. So now a majority of what you see for your requests, your routes, and all that stuff is inside HTTP. And then instead of views being inside the app directory, they have a resource directory that has views in it. So that's kind of the route they took. So everything's still there. It's just in different folders. So the routes folder is inside the HTTP directory that's inside the apps. And here we have this route saying, get and then / function and then return view. And view is a function that's built inside of Laravel that knows to go to this folder right here. So one of the things to note is, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit, we just said go to welcome. We said here view welcome. It knows to go to the views folder, and the root of the views folder there's a welcome file. Yet it says welcome.blade.php. So whenever you return a view, you just drop the extension and it knows to either look for a PHP file or a blade.php file. And Blade is their templating system that's built into Laravel. So it's really cool. So if we were to set a new route, we would say I want to route something else. I'm going to route get, and let's just say test. And this function gets called when that route gets hit. Turn, and of course, what would a demonstration be without a hello world? And hello world, it's always been kind of difficult to me because for some reason I think the W belongs to hello. So it's hello world. Yeah, I always make that mistake. I don't know why. And you can see that when I hit / test, all I did was return a string, so it just printed out that string. Normally we're not going to do that. We're going to return a view, and even on top of that, we would actually return some type of method that's inside a controller, and that's the next part of the MVC. But is there any questions before I? And I know I'm going over this. This is kind of like a brief overview of everything. There's so much to talk about, but just wanted to kind of get like a here's how we get started. But are there any questions before I get into controllers? Good.
2 spaces, bro.
What is? Here I got 4 spaces. I'm matching the yeah. You see what? No, actually it is 2 spaces. Yeah, you did. So here, route test. I'm going to actually return a controller. This is the view. You think of the controller as, hey, this is what controls all the functionality and also what kind of connects my models to my views. I pull stuff from a model like data, and then I'm going to show it in a view somewhere. So that's kind of what the controller does. And it really is a class. And the cool thing about Laravel is it comes with this tool called Artisan that you can kind of generate those classes for you. So right now I'm just going to kind of make this up. I'm going to call this home controller, and then I'm going to do this @ symbol, and let's just say index. We could call this whatever we want. We could call this whatever we want. We could call this whatever we want. Home controller is going to be kind of the name of the file .php, and it's also going to be the class name. @index is going to be a method that's inside that class. So when we create this, we're going to just do, first I'm going to show you kind of all the commands that you could do. If you just type in PHP Artisan, you have all these kind of tools to help you generate pretty much anything. Anybody familiar with the REPL inside of PHP? Yeah, so PHP-A, you can mess with the REPL. Tinker is the one for Laravel. It's kind of a library built on top of that, and it's a nice little library. If you wanted to run it, you do PHP Artisan Tinker. and then it's kind of this shell that you can play with and say, I want to echo 1 plus 1, or 1 plus 2. You can see that I get the answer. The cool thing about the Tinker is you can actually interact with your database of this application. So a lot of times if you're trying to find something, you would just put PHP Artisan Tinker, test what you're doing, and if you get the exact query that you want, let's say you're trying to pull a specific result, and then finally you get in Tinker, then you can kind of port that over into your application. So to get out of it, you just throw away your computer because there's no way out. Just kidding. Control D. So PHP Artisan, and then looking through here, I'm seeing PHP Artisan make controller. One of the other tools I like doing is PHP Artisan make controller, and I do a -H to kind of help, so I could kind of go down into that command line to see, hey, what options do I have for controller? Well, I have plain. I just want to do an empty controller for this round. I don't want it to, by default, if I do PHP Artisan make controller and then the name of a controller, it puts like these 6 methods inside of there that are meant for like a CRUD system. And your CRUD system, create, read, update, delete. So I puts those methods in there, and then all you have to do is add a route to that file and everything kind of connects, which is kind of cool. But for this round, I just want to make an empty controller. So I like that plain flag there. So I'm going to do PHP Artisan make controller, and I think I called it home controller, and I want it to be plain. And there, it says controller created successfully. Go over to our controllers. Look what we have here. The other cool thing about Laravel 5, it has this thing called namespacing. And I really hadn't messed much with namespacing until Laravel 5. So now I think it's cool. I think it sucked when I started using it. But really all it is just kind of grouping like features together under a namespace. And you can actually change that. But for now, for this purpose, I'm just going to leave it like that. The other thing is kind of this use here. It's kind of like use this library inside this file. So a lot of times you'll see something like, hey, we don't have access to this. Well, it's because you got to go find that file and use it inside this file. It's awesome.
It knows you need it, right?
Exactly, yeah. Public function, all the functions that we have to do, all the methods that we have to do that we hit through the route have to be public. Doesn't mean all your methods have to. So public function index, and for now, of course, I'm just going to return some string. I'm going to check my routes. I say when I hit test, I want you to go home controller at index. So there's the home controller. I have an index method there. Some string. So now we got that connected, so our route's connected to our controller. Let's go a step further. View, and then I want to return the welcome view. Let's say welcome. Yeah, I don't need it recaps. Welcome view. So it knows to go to this views and hit welcome, but I'm going to change this up. Let's say PHP meetup. So now when I hit test, that's what I get. I get that HTML that's inside the views. Any questions so far? Yes.
Are you gonna go over making an app template, break up the welcome template?
Yes. And I have that kind of, this is the whole thing of, this is the recipe and how you do this, and let's bake these cookies for 30 minutes. Oh, they're already ready. So I have code ready for that. So, yeah. Just like on TV, yeah.
I knew you were Martha Stewart.
Yeah. Underneath, I wear a Martha Stewart dress, is what I was going to say. Here, let me see. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Controllers. So you see my notes, it says views migration. That means to talk about views and migration. There's not much after that. So here in views, a lot of times the way I like structuring this views folder is I like creating a directory, and I call this directory either layouts or layout. And this is kind of like my main skeleton layout. You know how on your page you have your navigation, your header, all this other stuff, and then you have kind of like a footer. And really it's only this content that's different from page to page. So a lot of times you'll have kind of the same structure to a page. This is kind of where I put that HTML file. I'm going to grab... Are you serious? That is so awesome. Yeah. And look, we already have one available to us. So inside of layouts, I'm going to put a new file. I'm going to call this, usually I go with the word master.blade. And really in all the applications, or the applications that I've done in Laravel 5, I only really have two layout files inside of here. And a lot of times it's just the master, and a lot of times it's the home page. Because sometimes I'll have the home page look different than the regular, other facing pages. It's kind of the norm. You have this nice looking home page and then content pages. So here's my master file. Now notice it's master.blade.php. You could just have regular PHP files here and it would work fine. But then we wouldn't be able to take advantage of all the Blade templating they do. Now, don't make Blade templating it out to be something more complicated than it is. It's really just kind of these other different tags that you put there. So here is kind of the skeleton. I just kind of pulled this from a Bootstrap thing. You got your navigation and all this other stuff. I'll explain this code when we get to posting. But you have your if statements, but it's a little different. If you're used to short tags, it looks very, very similar. And then let me pull one file over here. This is my... Okay, there we go. 4 tabs. So, at yield content, really all this is I'm going to make a content section somewhere. And I want you to place it right here in between this div where starter template is. A little bit different than an include because it's almost like, it works almost the reverse. It's like on the actual file itself, you're going to tell it what master file to extend instead of you including or requiring a file inside of here. So it's like, here's the template. I'm going to put content right here. And the way you do this with @yield, and then you call it content. A lot of times I'll make this right here an @yield as well. And I just, you can come up with whatever name you want. What's inside of here is just the label. So a lot of times I'll do that and I'll say this is bottom scripts, like that, or scripts. I might just call it scripts. But for now I'm just going to leave it at this. Here's @yield content. So now I have my master file. I'm going to make a home page file, so I'm just going to right click. I don't believe there is a views, make views. Yeah, it's just because it's easy. Right click, new file, and I'm going to call this home.blade.php. And so this master file, just think of it as a template. And really all I have to do on this home file is do @extends. And then here's something different. Layouts, the master file is inside a folder called layouts. So I need to do that with a path. Now the way this works is, you would think it would work like this, but it doesn't. Instead of the /, it's a dot to separate those. So it's like go to the layouts folder, get the masters file, and then it goes to put .blade.php.
Doesn't work with either one.
I've never tried this route. I've actually always used this, but we can test it out real quick.
It's no biggie, I was curious.
So let's do this. Here we know my test route goes to home controller. Let's yeah, let's just leave it at test here, and then I'll switch it back to home. So here at home, at the home controller, this is already returning welcome. Well, instead of welcome, I want you to do home. So home says, well, go to the views folder, get the home, okay, and in the home, all we're doing is extending master. So that's the home page there. Let me go to there's some test, and there's the master, there's the bootstrap file. So you can see that this right here has no content in it, yet it pulled up and parsed everything out, and now I have content on that home page. So the question next is, how do I target this at yield content? Because I want to put content there. Well, the way you do it is you do it with something called section, and then you call it by the label name. That's the label name. And you put it in between those two tags. One of it's section, the other one's stop. I think there's other options you can do here, but I've never used them. And then you can start with your HTML, you know. See what I mean? You see that? That's always muscle memory for me. Anyway. Put some lorem text in here. And so there's the page. So you can see that it took whatever was inside of section by this label and just placed it right here where content's at. This is the moment where you say, what the? That is so cool. Thanks, man. Ha! Was that a question? Okay. That was just a duck.
That's a frustration duck.
Gotcha. Oh, they're mad at me because we made them learn PHP the hard way first. Like, seriously? Don't be mad. Right, Jamie? You're not still mad? See, she won't even look at me anymore. So here you can see I just added the number 2 on here. I'm just going to show you that that label is what's important for this kind of all syncing up. If I go over here to Blade, I could go, hey, this is label 2, and then it all should work again. Let's see, did I save it? There is something going on with my virtual box. See, there it is. So my virtual box will pick up. Every now and then it's on a 30-second refresh. I don't know why. I got to fix that. It's a bug. But yeah, go download it. It's open source. There it is. But just to go to show you that those do have to match there. And you can kind of come up with your own ones. So let's go ahead and fix up our routes. I actually want that to come up as our home page. So instead of returning this function, I'm going to kind of take this and get rid of our test here. Now that we're kind of done testing, I'm saying when you go to the home page, I want you to go to home controller at index. Here's home controller at index. There's the method to kind of pick up. Return the view home. You go to home. Home says extend layouts.master. And inside where it has a yield content, I want you to put this code inside of there. If you don't have this, it does something interesting the way it actually parses. It'll still, I don't have test no more. So you see how it kind of kicks out now? I don't have that route no more. I can't do this anymore. So I got to go to home. But even though it shows it, and even though I don't have that section there, I want y'all to pay attention to the source code. It renders it first before the doc type. So that's why it's kind of important to make sure that you have your section tags in there. And you can see that here it's in the place where it needs to be. So you can see, hey, that's where I had that at yield content. Okay, questions?
Punishment for this exercise, and I'm putting it on the folder makes sense. Like, I'm putting controllers. Would it make sense to make like a homes folder that has all of your
Yes, we're going to actually make a post folder. So we'll show you, because that's kind of like everything that has to do with post, it's inside this post folder. So that's really for your organization. As long as you know how to get to it, And I told you we were going to test this // so let me so we test that. Yeah, so well, here, let me test this other one. Oh no, I don't have test no more. Yeah, so it works both ways. It's just the way I learned it was with the dot. I think to me that looks cleaner. This looks like it's kind of in the master's face. Could have had a face. So here, just to kind of show you, there's so much to more to blade templating. Here we have this kind of if statement, and really everything that starts is very. The blade templating has to be kind of very clean, and that's kind of how they kept it. It's the biggest part of it, trying to keep PHP separate from views and all that, but still it has to intermingle. So they were very minimal with the way they went with this kind of like if statement, but there's even a for each that you can do. It really is what, as clean as you can get. There's your for each, and of course you have your end for each, and then you would have everything inside of there. End for each, array as key value or as value, and there's no PHP tags. You don't put them in there. So that's inside the views. Now you can, if you're debugging, PHP tags will still work. But you can see here we're saying if count $errors is greater than 0, then I want you to put this div tag. And then you can see this for each errors all as error, and then I want you to put it inside list items.
Can you run all kinds of PHP functions in the view like this?
Yes, you can. I'd say don't, but you can. Yes. A lot of times I'll add it, and it's normally, it's because I'm trying to var dump something.
Right.
And the other cool thing to kind of note in Laravel is they come with a function called dump or die, which is var dump and then die. So that's kind of a cool, quick thing that I'm doing inside of Laravel. I do it so much that I may do it sometimes in custom PHP that doesn't have Laravel, and then I find out the hard way. One thing I want you to note here is these curly braces. So normally in PHP you would do this and you would echo a variable, single line. There's the other way to do it. You would echo a variable. Well, the way Laravel with blade templating does, that's how you echo a variable. So you don't do echo, it's just the curly braces around there. It really is a templating engine. That's what it's meant for. The other thing that they do is there's a triple curly braces, and what that does is that strips HTML tags, does the HTML entities, does all this extra stuff too. Oh no, you'll get away.
Are you kidding me?
Y'all guys are pre-learning this, man. So actually, I told you incorrectly though. I told you incorrectly. That's Laravel 4. This right here is L4 or LR. This right here, L5, strips tags and entities. So with Laravel 4, I just remembered right now. This is one of the main differences between the two. In Laravel 4, 2 curly braces meant just echo. 3 curly braces meant echo and do escape and all that other cool stuff. In Laravel, let's just say L4, echo, and we'll just call this safe echo. In Laravel 5, this right here is the safe echo, and I want to say it's 1. I can't remember. Is it 2 and a bang?
Oh no, one. I think it's 2 exclamation points, right? 1 bracket and 2. Yeah, 2 exclamation points. Yeah, 2 exclamation points.
Just like that?
No,
Oh, one more exclamation.
Yeah, on each side.
Just goes to show you that I don't. So in other words, this is the safe echo, and then L5. This is the regular echo in L5. So those are the differences actually. So now you can throw your duck. So that's kind of cool about the templating.
The safe echo stuff is just for like cross-site scripting.
Yeah, cross-site scripting, it converts all tags to HTML entities or strips tags and stuff like that when it's coming from wherever you're trying to pull it from. You know, you always want to be safe the way you display that. And now they do it by default with Laravel 5, and now you have to escape it or not do it, you know, in L5. And normally, there's a lot of helpers sometimes that you echo, you know, like form helpers, but they just kind of got rid of those in Laravel 5, and you can add them back with another library that used to be kind of tied into Laravel 4. However, I just write forms from scratch just because I think helpers don't really help on forms. I haven't seen a good form helper yet. I just let you know, it takes the same amount of time to write them regular. Yeah. So let me see. Do we still have enough time? Right. Okay. I don't know if I had the stamina. So views templating. I mean, we can go look up here real quick, so that way, if I remember here, everything. Extending the layout, I just kind of showed you that. So here's a cool thing too, @yield title. You know, if I wanted to go up here and say this is a starter template, but I want you to say this is the app name, or let's just say I do @yield title. Really, I just add another section right here, title. And there's also a default if like I'm going to pass like a simple string where I just do comma and then the string right after there, you know, this is my title. Like that. Notice that none of this blade templating has semicolons too. So whenever you start it, you will add semicolons just because you're kind of used to it. I still do every now and then, but for blade templating, you don't do that.
Is it error, or is it still work? Or?
I believe it'll still work.
It'll just print it.
Oh, it printed out. Okay.
Yeah, or if you make one of the tag plural, it'll just print the S. It'll just, yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
So you see this is a different way to do section. I did section, but you know, I didn't really want to put a stop because it's like, well, I only have this one little string, you know, whatever the title I want it to be. So I just did whatever the label was, and then whatever the string that I wanted it to be. And you can see that here I've said, hey, I want you to do this right here in between title. And then even if you want, you can include your H1 tag here and do the same tag. But you can see that I replaced this as my title right here at the top. So that's another cool thing. Let me see here. Displaying data. Yeah, we'll go ahead and show that. So here we have our controller. Let's see. Here we have our controller. We could say, I want to send data to this controller. And the way we send data is by an array. So the first one is the key. So let's just say I'm going to send, yeah, we'll just say test because we like that word. And then some value we want here. And so automatically the way Blade templating works along with this controller is if you send in you know, this view method, a view function, if you put an array here, this key right here becomes the actual variable name that's available in Blade. So I go here to content and I say I want another paragraph, and I have a variable coming over and it's called test. So notice that this test right here, where was it? Home controller, matches this test right here. So this gets converted into a $, you know, just a variable, a PHP variable. Or we get an error. Undefined variable test. What did I not do right? Turn view. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just had a multiple. I just had an indexed array, 0 and 1. I didn't put a key value pair here. Thank you for that. There we go. So you see the $ test came over as the variable instead of as my variable with the view. So a lot of times if I'm carrying over a lot of data, I'll end up making a data array right here. And I can say this is test, thing, another. Yeah, I think so. And then so what I'll end up doing is saying, instead of passing this, I'm going to pass data to my view. And now all of these become variables inside my view. Test, another, and then again, go back to here. Test, another, and I believe I said again. So those are all variables inside my view now. Pretty dope, right? Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. It's cool. What else? Oh, here's a cool thing. If you're ever messing with, this is, I think, fairly new because before this, when I was trying to mess with, have any of y'all messed with like Angular or any type of front-end framework? So Angular has, you know, curly braces to echo out their data as part of their templating as well. Well, how do you do that when you're messing with Blade and you're trying to connect it to what's going to echo? Is it going to be Laravel or is it going to be Angular? So I went around my way to figure out, well, I'm going to create my own tag, and I couldn't even tell you how to get there again. I'd have to look it up again. So I created my own tag just for Laravel to work with, Angular. And here, I've never found this one tag that all you have to do is put an @ symbol in front of it. And now it says, hey, this is an Angular or some other templating tag. Ignore it as Blade template tag. So that's pretty cool.
It's just in 5.
Just in 5, yes. It might be in 4. I mean, I don't look at 4 anymore. I mean, I do look at 4.
As it should be.
Well, so 4 is pretty stable. 5 is just one of those things where it's just kind of come out, and we will eventually. Here's a cool thing. It's not in. Okay, so. And it's always kind of confusing sometimes to me because then I have to think the reverse. And PHP's never had an unless function. So Blade templating has unless, print this unless auth is checked. So a lot of times I have to really think about the not of this. And, I make it more complicated than it is, but unless is pretty cool if you want to use it instead of doing a bang on your if statement, for a not. So let's get some data. Unless if y'all guys have questions, let me know. Okay, that's that. Up in another one. So Vagrant, again, talking about the virtual box. I can SSH into the virtual box, which is Vagrant SSH, and this is as if I'm doing an SSH into a server that's somewhere else, but it's my own virtual machine. So I'm going to find the site, logi.dev. And the reason I'm going here is because inside this folder is where where you do the artisan commands. So the artisan commands don't work outside any Laravel application. They work for that application that's installed inside that folder. So again, you could artisan migrate. You can do the -h to kind of see what other options you have, for this. So, is everybody familiar with what a migration is? Yeah. Okay. So to create them in Laravel, it's PHP artisan migrate. Let me just do this so you can see all the commands. Make migration, that's what I meant. PHP artisan make migration. And they changed this from 4 to 5 too, so it's a different command in 4 to migrate than it is in 5. Make migration, a lot of times I'll just start off with create, because I'm going to create a table. And I'm going to say I want to create a post table. And I always like passing this dash dash right here and do create equals posts. So this is telling it that, hey, I want you to create a migration file, create underscore post underscore table. And this is going to be a create migration. So what's the other type of migration? It's like an add migration. I'm altering a table. So there are those type of migrations. And then you would just switch out create with table. The reason I like doing that because there's extra code that gets added to my migration file that I don't have to add. So that's kind of cool. So if you look here, it's under database, migrations. And you can see that Laravel comes pre-installed with 3 migrations. Give me 1 second here. Sorry. So this is what happens when my car's in the shop and I told my wife to pick me up at the wrong time. So you can see we have users already kind of pre-installed, and then password reset kind of already pre-installed. I'm really not going to use those, so I'm just going to kind of delete those. I don't want those to actually migrate. Users is kind of another topic in itself. It's pre-baked into Laravel. So it's kind of easy to get up and running. But I'm saying rename, I'm not delete. Come on, guys. So I'm just going to keep this migration. And notice that when I ran that, it actually date timestamped it, so you could kind of run another migration over and over. And then this is the code that I'm talking about that it pre-did. Kind of wrap the schema around that. Yeah, I could have written that, but I didn't want to. And then the other thing here too, it kind of starts with your ID and your timestamps. These timestamps, they come with 2 timestamps. For every record that's inserted in a database, it's updated at or created at. So it keeps those records if you keep that line in your migration. It actually pre-install them. And for migrations, look here, schema. The reason I like looking at this, because this tells you everything that's it's a table that tells you everything that, hey, I'm making a MySQL table. How do I do this with my migration? So this will tell you, do you need a decimal? Well, this is how you do it. Double, enum, float, increment. Right here, of course, that's for your incrementing ID. Boolean, JSON B, which those are kind of cool to mess with if you ever want to mess with those. But for the most part, this is right here is your varchar, saying string. I'm kind of on the fence if they should have kept it kind of close to the name of the MySQL, data type. And then, of course, to note here that you can actually say the length of this string, which is 100 for the, for this instance. So table, I want a string, and this is going to be the title for all my posts. And I'm going to make it, let's just do 100. We'll stick with that. Then I'm going to do table. And then I'm going to do text. And text is just, your blob for MySQL. And I'm going to just call that content. And then remember, we're already connected to our database. Nothing's in here. You could run these next two. You could run all of this in one command. I like doing it in 2. just because I want to make sure that migration, migration installs. Here's PHP Artisan migrate install. So it says it migrated successfully. So what this migration does is just keeps track of everything that you're running. Did it run this migration? If not, then run it. And so that's how it keeps track of it. So that table is always in your database. And then I want you to actually migrate. And then you can see that there's the name of the actual migration file. I look here in migrations, and it says it ran. And of course, we can see our table here and our table structure. I don't know if I can. No, I can't zoom in. So I got ID, title, content, and then those are the timestamps right here. It's pretty dope. Yeah. So I'm going to grab a form here, and then we're going to insert into that table, and that's kind of what I have for today. So in views, I'm going to create a folder, call it post, and then new file. We're going to call this create.blade.php. Notice here, same blade syntax, at layouts master in the section, and then I got a simple form right here. Of course, pulled out a bootstrap, so it has some styling to it. Here I have input text, title, and then here I have the content. One thing to note is that Laravel comes kind of installed with the CSRF kind of token for cross-site forgery. So you need to make sure when you're making forms that you have this. So notice it's hidden right here. Notice underscore token, so it gets carried along with the form. You can't submit forms to your application without this, but it's kind of protection, for you. So if I created that file, I actually got to get to it somehow. So I'm going to route, get, and I'm going to do post, create, and we're going to create a post controller. You know what? I'm just going to keep everything at the home. Well, here, we'll just do another one. Yeah. Post controller at create. So that means another controller I got to create. And then I'm going to do one more. If I have a form, it's got a post. So with this route, you can actually pick which verb you want to select. So I want this route to be hit when it posts. And I'm going to post to the same URL right here. And I want that to actually go to the store. Like store this data. So you could hit every HTTP verb right here in your route file. Put, you can hit delete as well. And then with your regular CRUD, remember I told you that controller that you make that's not plain? It comes with all your CRUD system. When you do that, I'm not going to do that one for this one. I'm just going to kind of do some simple routes. You would just do resource, post, and then like that, post, controller, and that's all you would put there. And it would take care of which method to hit. And every method has its own, oh, this one's a get, oh, this one's a post. If I pass an ID, then I'm trying to show one record and all that kind of stuff. So it handles it with that one, so that way you don't have all those URLs. And then we're going to go just kind of create this real quick. PHP artisan make controller. I want post controller plain. Okay, that created. The other thing I want you to take note is the plural and singular. If it's a post controller, because this handles all the posts, and then kind of this I'm showing something, so it's a single post that gets carried across through this through the application. Function, I had to create, and then I had a store. So for create, all I'm going to do is return view. I'm inside the post folder, and I want the create form. So when I'm at the URL /post create, and there's my form. There's something else that's here. Well, let me show it to you real quick here. I'm going to bring over this code here so that way we have a base. I'm going to comment it up. No, I'm going to comment it out for that. So let's comment this out. So remember, in the routes, I'm going to get and I'm going to post to the same URL. But notice at the end of this, when it's post, I want it to go to a different method. So really, you know, in PHP, you have a form and you post. Sometimes either you post it to itself and you have your code on top, or you post it to another script file. This is kind of the same thing, except you're doing it to methods. So here's my form, but I'm posting to this method. So you handle all the post stuff with that. Now, Laravel 5, the way it came out is this is different the way it is in Laravel 4. It came out with this what's called a request. So everything's a request that it kind of runs through. And remember, one thing with forms is, hey, I want to validate this form. I want to make sure that everything's required, and I want to make sure that all this stuff is either the max or minimum that it needs to be. So let me see here, PHP Artisan. I always got to remember make requests. Yeah, easy enough. PHP Artisan make request. So this make request is going to create a request file where I can say, hey, for this form, I want to validate and make sure the title is required, content is required, and maybe that the content is maximum of 3 characters or something like that, something weird. So we're going to call this post request. That gets created, and then it's inside this request folder that's inside of HTTP. So here, determine if the user is authorized to make this request. I want to leave it open to everybody, so I just put true here. Right here we have validation rules, what we want. I have 2 fields in my application. I'm just going to kind of copy this and kind of explain them just a little bit. So here's title. Well, of course, this matches the name that's in that input. This is content that matches the name that's in that input. I want to say that this is required. Well, I just put required there. And you use pipes to separate each validation. And there's a ton of validation that you can do for Laravel. What I'm looking for is there's a table here that just tells you everything. You see, these are all the kind of things that you can do. Now, is it the same? Required if. So there's some pretty complicated stuff that you could do. Email, it'll actually just check for email. So remember doing some regular expressions for that stuff? Well, you just type in email. That's actually for 4.2, but it's not in a request file. So, you know, if you had an email field, you would say that, hey, this is required, and it's an email, and it would validate to check if it was an email. So there's a couple more things you have to do, but here's the the request kind of set, and then let me go back to post controller. So one thing that we have to do, Laravel 5 came with what's called kind of dependency injection. So it's like you load dependencies onto a variable. It's kind of like typecasting. So we got to load that post request. Hang on. Did I spell it right? Post request, and I'm going to do it onto a variable called request. This is going to bug out on me saying, hey, I don't have that file because your namespacing and all this cool stuff. So I'm just going to do app HTTP. It's under the request folder, and it is post request. Actually, this is the one I want right here. So that should take care of it. I'm saying I want you to use a post request. I want you to inject that on this variable. Don't forget your use statement. And then you can see now I can use the variable inside the store. I'm going to just say all. I want you to dump it all. Remember that dump and die. And then there's the content. Notice it carries over the token for that. So one last thing is we want to save that. Well, to kind of connect with my table post, I'm going to create a model. Actually, I don't know if you really need to for something this simple, but I'm going to do it anyway in case we would need to do anything. Make model post. So notice the naming scheme. Naming scheme, hey, it's a controller, post controller. It's a model, post model. You know, there's no singular. That's good. You know, convention you kind of want to stick with. Make. I forgot artisan. I make mistakes sometimes too. I'm only human, guys. Here's the one thing I don't like about Laravel 5. There's no models folder. It makes no sense to me at all why they don't have a models folder. Why get rid of it? It was already implemented, and they put everything in the root of the app. So one of the other first things I do is I move that. I'm not going to go over that right now because we'll have to mess with the namespacing and all that. But one of the first things I'll do is I'll create a folder, call it models, and there's where my models go. It's actually pretty easy to move that model post. It's a something if you're moving that user because it's tied so much to so many things. So there's several steps to use that to move that user model into that models folder. But it can be done, and it is the first thing I do every time I load. But for now, I'm just going to leave this here. It's a pain. The way models work is you have a protected, and then you have the variable table and the name of the table that's in the database. This is the name that's in my MySQL database. Open up the users model. May not have same thing here, you see, but it has a ton of other stuff. This is kind of cool too. Fillable. That means these are the things that are fillable that I want to be inserted into my database. If it's not in this field, don't let it through. So I'm going to steal that. So there's something special about the word fillable. Title, and I want content for my post. If there's anything else that's posted, don't accept it. These are the only two things that I want to accept for this, for this post, for this model. So if I wanted to use that model, remember we're namespacing. So app, it's in the root. So I'm just going to do user. Oh, not user, sorry. Post. Now I have access to it in this file. Lots of coding, typity type. Hey, we got a way to save it now. So you would just create a new instance of the post. Here's $post is equal to new post. And notice that I'm using the keys that are inside the database, the fields. So here I'm using title and content. I don't have anything for ID, or I don't have anything for created at or updated at. And remember that request is this method that I got through this injection. And here I do request, input, and the actual key name title. And of course those key names come from the form names that you have. And then the same thing here for content. There's a way to save this all in one line, but I would have to make a constructor and dependency inject the whole model into that. I'm not going to go through that right now, but it's actually pretty cool. And then just by setting title and content, I just do save, post, save. And that should, fingers crossed, insert into the database. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And all I'm going to do is just return that. There's a GET request. Whoa. Here we saved. Go refresh our database. Test title. That's pretty cool, right? Yeah. Just one last thing. Sorry, I get excited. Too easy. So remember I was telling you about this. I'm going to just test it right now. This may blow up in my face, but we'll see. Oh, okay. So you'd have to use that. Post. And then there we go. And then post title equals some title. Post content equals content. Post save. So this right here, again, I was showing y'all tinker because it really is one of those things that you can just tinker around with and mess with, and you go to your database and there's another insert into the record. So that way you can kind of get used to the commands that are inside of Laravel. Notice though it does namespace as well, so you got to make sure that you use that. Here I got to use my model so that way I can actually use my model. If that makes sense. Questions? No? Cool. So this is Laravel 5. And if y'all have any questions, y'all can find me pretty much anywhere, which is kind of scary because there's some stuff I don't want you to find, on at IcemanCast. So I'll put that on here. You know, you can find me on Twitter or anywhere else at IcemanCast. Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Man,
thank you
let's
very
hear it,
much.
Brian. Let's get it. Boy. Thanks. Good job.